It all began on a warm summer evening at the wedding of a mutual friend. The air was thick with the fragrance of roses, laughter echoing through the grand hall. That's when James first saw her, Sophia, across the dance floor. She stood out in a sea of people. Her long, dark hair cascaded over her shoulders, and her eyes sparkled with the excitement of the evening. Dressed in a deep red gown, she was breathtaking, and James couldn't take his eyes off her. He hesitated at first, wondering if he should approach her. His friends nudged him, teasing him about the way he was staring. Gathering the courage, he walked up to her, his heart racing. "Hi, I'm James," he said, offering a smile. Sophia looked at him with those captivating eyes, smiled, and replied, "I'm Sophia. You must be from the groom's side." They laughed, exchanging stories about the couple getting married, talking about how neither of them thought the wedding would be so extravagant. The night went on, and they danced together, flirted, and shared more about their lives. By the end of the night, James knew he was falling for her. There was something magical about the way they connected so easily. For weeks after the wedding, they kept in touch, texting, calling, and meeting whenever they could. Their chemistry was undeniable. Sophia would send him playful messages, teasing him about his day. He couldn't help but feel giddy every time his phone buzzed with her name. They shared romantic dates by the beach, long walks in the park, and late-night conversations about their dreams and future. James fell deeper with each passing day. Every time they kissed, it felt like the world faded away. Sophia would whisper, "I love you," in his ear, and James believed her with all his heart. They would send sweet "miss you" and "love you" messages when they were apart, and their connection seemed unbreakable. A year later, they got married in a beautiful ceremony, surrounded by friends and family. The wedding was everything they had dreamed of, romantic, filled with laughter and overflowing with love. James remembered the way Sophia looked walking down the aisle, like a dream he never wanted to wake up from. They vowed to love each other forever, through good times and bad. For the first year, everything was perfect. They were the couple everyone admired. James would come home from work to find Sophia waiting for him with a warm smile, ready to wrap her arms around him. They would spend evenings cooking together, laughing at each other's terrible jokes and enjoying their cozy life. Their kisses felt like promises of eternity, and every "I love you" was spoken with sincerity. But then, slowly, things began to change. Sophia started spending more time outside the house, telling James she had made new friends and was reconnecting with old ones. She became more distant, often glued to her phone, texting someone who wasn't James. At first, James didn't think much of it. Everyone needed their space, he thought. He trusted Sophia. Why wouldn't he? She was his wife, the woman he had shared everything with. But soon, Sophia started coming home later and later. Some nights, she wouldn't come home at all, sending vague texts like, "Don't wait up," "Staying with a friend," or "Work kept me late. I'll be home tomorrow." James tried to believe her, but a sinking feeling began to grow in his chest. The warmth of their home started to fade, replaced by cold silence and unanswered questions. When he would ask her why she was so distant, she would brush him off, saying, "You're overthinking it. Don't be so paranoid, James." But James couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Sophia wasn't the same woman he had fallen in love with at their friend's wedding. The sweet text stopped. The late-night conversations were gone, and their once passionate kisses became distant pecks on the cheek. One night, after Sophia had claimed she was working late, James decided to follow her. He felt guilty, his stomach in knots, but he had to know the truth. What he discovered shattered him completely. Sophia wasn't at work. She was at a dimly lit restaurant, sitting across from a man James had never seen before. They were laughing, sharing intimate glances, and holding hands across the table. James watched from a distance, his heart breaking as he saw Sophia lean in and kiss this stranger, something that was once reserved only for him. He couldn't breathe. His world came crashing down in an instant. Every "I love you" Sophia had ever said now felt like a lie. Every kiss a betrayal. James didn't confront her that night. Instead, he went home, waiting for her to return with a storm of emotions swirling inside him. Anger, heartbreak, disbelief. When she finally came home, hours later, she acted as if everything was normal. But James knew he couldn't hold it in anymore. "Where were you, Sophia?" he asked, his voice trembling with emotion. "I told you. I was working late," she replied casually, not meeting his eyes. "No, you weren't." James's voice was firm now, his eyes burning with the truth. "I saw you." Sophia froze, her face paling. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. The silence between them was deafening. James couldn't contain his emotions any longer. "Who is he, Sophia? Who is the man you were kissing tonight?" Sophia looked down, her hands trembling. "James, it's not what you think. Not what I think." James exploded. "I saw you with him. You've been lying to me for months. Do you even love me anymore?" Tears filled Sophia's eyes, but she didn't deny it. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did." James felt like he had been stabbed in the heart. The woman he had loved so deeply, the woman he had married, had betrayed him. He couldn't hold back the tears any longer. "Why, Sophia? Why did you do this to us?" Sophia couldn't look at him. "I don't know. I got lost. I'm sorry." James couldn't sleep that night. His mind was a whirlwind of pain and confusion. The woman he had trusted with his heart had torn it apart, and no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't understand why. As the early morning light began to filter through the windows, he realized something. This wasn't just a mistake. This was the beginning of the end. Sophia, on the other hand, barely slept. She sat in the kitchen, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee, staring blankly ahead. She didn't know what to say, how to fix things, or even if she wanted to. The guilt weighed heavily on her, but so did the strange, confusing emotion she felt for the man she had been seeing. She didn't know how it had all spiraled out of control so quickly. One moment, she was the perfect wife, and the next, she was sneaking out in the middle of the night, lying to James and living a double life. The next morning, James confronted her again, this time angrier than before. His voice was tight with emotion, but beneath it was a quiet desperation. "Sophia, you can't just sit there and act like nothing happened." James slammed his hand on the kitchen table, causing her to flinch. "Talk to me. Tell me why you did this. Was I not enough for you? Did our marriage mean nothing?" Sophia's eyes filled with tears, but they didn't fall. She kept her gaze on the cup of coffee in front of her. "It wasn't about you, James," she whispered. "It was me. I don't know who I am anymore. I feel like I've been suffocating." "Suffocating?" James shouted, incredulous. "We had everything. We loved each other. You said you'd always be with me, no matter what." "I know," she said softly, "but I changed. I'm not the same woman you married." James let out a bitter laugh, running his hands through his hair. "You changed? So, what now? You throw away everything we built because you don't know who you are anymore? Because some guy made you feel alive again?" Sophia looked up at him then, her eyes red. "You don't understand." "No, I don't." James interrupted, his voice breaking. "How could you do this to me, to us? I would have given you anything, Sophia. Anything. Was it all just a lie?" Sophia's silence was the only answer he needed. In that moment, James realized that the woman sitting across from him was no longer the woman he had fallen in love with. She was a stranger, and no amount of fighting or crying could bring back what they had lost. Days passed, and the house was thick with tension. They tried to talk, but every conversation ended in a fight. James couldn't let go of the betrayal, and Sophia couldn't give him a reason that made sense. She was lost in her own guilt and confusion, and the more they tried to fix things, the more they fell apart. James wanted to make it work. He wanted to believe that they could somehow rebuild what had been broken. But every time he looked at Sophia, all he could see was her with another man. The images haunted him. Sophia smiling at someone else, laughing with someone else, kissing someone else. It was a wound that wouldn't heal, no matter how much he tried to forget. One evening, after another argument, James broke down. He stood in the doorway of their bedroom, his voice trembling with frustration and pain. "Tell me, Sophia, do you love him? Do you love that man?" Sophia looked at him, her face streaked with tears. She shook her head slowly, but her voice was uncertain. I don't know." That was the final blow. James felt the floor give way beneath him, as if the world was crumbling around him. "You don't know?" he repeated, his voice hollow. "After everything, you don't even know?" "I'm sorry, James," Sophia whispered, her voice barely audible. "I didn't mean for it to get this far." "But it did," he said, his voice filled with sorrow. "And now we're here. We're standing in the ruins of what used to be us." Things spiraled further when James, in a fit of anger and desperation, decided to confront the man Sophia had been seeing. He tracked him down. His name was Ethan. He was tall, confident, and arrogant in a way that made James's skin crawl. They met at a bar downtown, and James didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Stay away from my wife," James spat, his fists clenched at his sides. Ethan, unfazed, leaned back in his chair and smirked. "Your wife? From what I hear, she's not really yours anymore." James saw red. Without thinking, he grabbed Ethan by the collar and shoved him against the wall. "If you ever come near her again, I swear I'll—" "Do what?" Ethan interrupted, his voice cold. "Hit me? What will that change? She came to me, James. She chose me." Those words cut deeper than any punch could. James let go of Ethan. stumbling back as if the weight of the truth had physically knocked him down. Sophia had chosen him. She had walked away from their marriage, from everything they had, and into the arms of another man. James left the bar that night feeling more lost than ever. The reality of his broken marriage hit him like a wave, threatening to drown him. He couldn't eat, he couldn't sleep, and every time he looked at Sophia, all he saw was betrayal. It wasn't long before things reached their breaking point. James came home one evening to find Sophia packing her bags. She had made her choice. "I can't stay here anymore, James," she said, her voice heavy with emotion. "I've hurt you too much. I can't keep doing this." James stood in the doorway, watching as the woman he once loved packed up her life and prepared to leave him. His heart ached, but he couldn't fight anymore. He was too tired, too broken. "Is this it?" he asked quietly. "After everything, this is how it ends?" Sophia paused, her back to him. "I don't know how to fix this," she whispered. "I'm sorry." James sat in the empty house, staring at the quiet walls. The silence was deafening. It was the first night without her, and the weight of her absence filled every corner of the house. Everywhere he looked, there were reminders of her. Her shoes still by the door, her perfume lingering in the air, a half-empty bottle of wine they had shared just a few nights ago. It was like the ghost of their love was haunting him. He wanted to call her, to beg her to come back, but a deep part of him knew that nothing would ever be the same. Even if she returned, the trust had been shattered beyond repair. He had loved her with everything he had, and she had still chosen someone else. Meanwhile, Sophia was starting a new chapter, but it wasn't as easy as she had imagined. She moved into a small apartment downtown, far from the home she had shared with James. The first few days were liberating in a way. No more lies, no more sneaking around. But soon, the reality of her decision began to weigh on her. Ethan, the man she had risked everything for, was not the fantasy she had built in her mind. Their relationship, which had been filled with passion and excitement when it was a secret, now felt shallow and empty. Without the thrill of the affair, Sophia found herself questioning everything. Ethan was fun, yes, but could he ever really compare to what she had with James? She missed the stability, the comfort, the deep love she once shared with her husband. She missed the small moments. James holding her hand during a movie, his warm smile when he came home from work, the way he would kiss her forehead before falling asleep. Those were the moments that had made their marriage special. Now, all she had were memories. James, determined to move forward, threw himself into work. He started going out more, meeting up with friends who tried to cheer him up. They would invite him to bars, hoping he would meet someone new, but James wasn't interested. Every time he saw another couple, laughing or holding hands, it reminded him of what he had lost. One night, after a few drinks, his friend Dave pulled him aside. "James, man, you've got to let her go. I know it's hard, but she made her choice. You deserve better than this." James looked down at his drink, swirling the ice around. "I know," he said quietly, "but it's not that simple. I can't just forget everything. She was my everything." Dave sighed, patting him on the back. "I get it, but you need to start living for yourself again. Go on a date, even if it's just for fun. You need to feel something other than this pain. James wasn't sure he was ready, but he agreed to try. As the days passed, Sophia found herself thinking about James more and more. She wondered how he was coping if he had moved on. The guilt gnawed at her. She had thought that leaving James for Ethan would bring her happiness, but all she felt was emptiness. The excitement had worn off, and she was left with the cold realization that she had made a terrible mistake. One night, she found herself standing outside the house she once called home. The lights were off, but she could see James's car in the driveway. She hadn't planned to come here, but something had pulled her back. As she stood there, memories of their life together flooded her mind. Their wedding day, their late-night talks, their laughter, their love. Sophia's chest tightened with regret. She wanted to knock on the door, to beg for forgiveness, but she was terrified. What if it was too late? What if James had already moved on? Weeks passed, and one day, James received an unexpected message. It was from Sophia. His heart raced as he opened it. "James, can we talk? I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I need to see you. Please." James stared at the message, his emotions swirling. He didn't know what to feel. Anger, sadness, hope, against his better judgment. He agreed to meet her. They decided to meet at the park, where they had their first date. James arrived first, sitting on a bench under the same tree where they once shared a kiss. The memories hit him like a wave, and for a moment he wondered if he had made the right choice by agreeing to see her. Sophia arrived a few minutes later. She looked different. Tired, sad, broken in a way he had never seen before. They stood there, a few feet apart, unsure of how to start. Finally, Sophia spoke, her voice trembling. "James, I'm so sorry. I don't even know where to begin." James stared at her, his face unreadable. "Why now, Sophia? Why do you want to talk now?" Tears filled her eyes. "Because I made a mistake. I thought I wanted something different, but I didn't. I was lost, James. And I hurt you, and I'll never forgive myself for that. I needed to tell you that." James let out a long breath, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "You broke me, Sophia. Do you even understand that? I trusted you. I loved you. And you threw it all away for what? Some fling? Some moment of excitement?" Sophia sobbed, her shoulders shaking. I know. And I'll regret it for the rest of my life. I wanted you to know that I'm sorry. I know it's too late, but I needed to tell you." For a moment, James was silent. He had spent weeks imagining this moment, wondering what he would say if he ever saw her again. And now, standing here with her, he didn't know what to do. "I don't know if I can forgive you," he finally said, his voice soft but firm. "I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust you again. You broke my heart, Sophia." Sophia wiped her tears, nodding. "I understand. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I needed to tell you that I'm sorry. I miss you, James. I miss us. But I understand if you don't want anything to do with me." James stared at Sophia, his heart pounding in his chest. He could feel the storm of emotion swirling inside him. Anger, betrayal, sadness, and somewhere deep down, the faintest flicker of the love they once shared. The air between them was thick with tension, and for a moment neither of them spoke. The silence was unbearable. "Sophia," James said, his voice heavy with pain, "I don't think you realize how deeply you hurt me. Every single night, I lay in that bed, wondering where you were, what you were doing, and if I wasn't enough for you. I gave you everything. Everything, Sophia." Sophia sobbed quietly, her hands trembling as she tried to find the right words. I know, James, and I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know why I did it. I felt lost, trapped, and I thought being with Ethan would somehow make me feel alive again. But all it did was destroy the best thing I ever had. James looked away, his jaw clenched. He was torn. Part of him wanted to walk away, to tell her it was over, that she had made her bed and now she had to lie in it. But another part of him, the part that still remembered how she made him laugh, how they used to dance in the kitchen to their favorite songs, how she would sneak little notes in his work bag telling him how much she loved him, that part couldn't let go. "Do you even love him?" James asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Sophia shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "No, I thought I did. I thought it was excitement, passion, but it wasn't love. It was an escape. I was running from something, but I didn't realize I was running away from the one person who loved me more than anyone else." James stood up abruptly, running his hands through his hair. "I don't know, Sophia. I don't know if I can ever look at you the same way again. How can I trust you? How do I know you won't hurt me again?" Sophia reached out, but James stepped back. "Please, James. I know I don't deserve it, but I swear to you, I would spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I was a fool. I lost sight of what was important, and I can't undo that. But I'm here now, and I'm begging you, give me a chance to prove that I can be the woman you fell in love with again." Just as Sophia finished speaking, James's phone buzzed on the bench. He glanced down and saw the name on the screen, Ethan. What the hell does he want now? James muttered under his breath, picking up the phone. "What do you want, Ethan?" On the other end, Ethan's voice was smooth, cocky even. "James, my man, I just wanted to make sure everything's good. You see, Sophia's been acting a little distant lately. I was just checking in to see if she's been coming to you with her guilty conscience." James's blood boiled. The nerve of this guy, calling him, taunting him, like the whole thing was a game. "Ethan, you piece of—" James started, but Ethan interrupted. "Relax, buddy. I know you're mad, and I get it. She's a beautiful woman. But don't get all bent out of shape. She came to me because you weren't keeping her satisfied. Can't blame the guy who knows how to treat a woman right." James's grip tightened around the phone. He could feel the rage bubbling to the surface, threatening to explode. Sophia, standing nearby, could see the change in James's expression. Her heart sank as she realized who was on the other end of the line. "James, don't listen to him," she pleaded. But it was too late. James hung up the phone abruptly and turned to Sophia, his eyes filled with a mix of fury and heartbreak. "Was this what you wanted? Huh? Was he everything I wasn't? Did he satisfy you in ways I couldn't?" Sophia shook her head, her tears falling faster. "No, James. Please don't do this. It wasn't about that. It was never about that." James's voice cracked with emotion. Then what was it about, Sophia? Why wasn't I enough for you? Sophia fell to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. James, I don't have an answer. I don't. I was selfish, stupid, and I let my insecurities destroy what we had. But you have to believe me when I say that I regret every second of it. I miss you. I miss us. Ethan was a mistake, and I want nothing to do with him any more. James stood there, staring down at her. For the first time, he saw not just his wife, but a broken woman who had made a terrible mistake. A woman who was begging for redemption, not just from him, but from herself. He could see the guilt eating away at her, the same way his anger had been eating away at him. He knelt down in front of her, lifting her chin so their eyes met. Sophia, you shattered my heart. You betrayed me in the worst way possible. But he paused, taking a deep breath. I still love you. God help me. But I do. Sophia's eyes widened in disbelief. James, are you saying? I'm saying, he interrupted, that I'm willing to try, but only if you're ready to cut him out of your life completely. No more lies, no more sneaking around. If we're going to rebuild this, it has to start now with honesty. If you ever betray me again, I swear it's over for good. Sophia nodded vigorously, her heart swelling with a glimmer of hope. I'll do anything, James. Anything. I swear I'll make it right. But as Sophia and James began to piece together the fragments of their broken marriage, Ethan was not ready to let her go so easily. He was a man used to getting what he wanted, and the idea of losing Sophia, especially to the man she had left him for, was more than his ego could handle. Ethan started to send messages to Sophia, threatening to reveal their private moments, claiming he had pictures, videos, anything that would ruin her reputation if she didn't leave James and come back to him. Sophia, terrified, showed the messages to James. He's trying to blackmail me, James. He's threatening to expose everything. James's face hardened. He thinks he can mess with our lives like this? Not a chance. I'll deal with him. James arrived at the cafe where he had agreed to meet Ethan, his heart pounding with anticipation. The atmosphere was tense, and he could feel the weight of the moment bearing down on him. He had spent days thinking about this confrontation, rehearsing what he would say, how he would react. He was determined not to let Ethan intimidate him. Ethan was already there when James arrived, sitting at a corner table with a smug grin on his face. He looked up, his eyes sparkling with mischief. James, glad you could make it. I was starting to think you'd chicken out. James clenched his fists, trying to remain calm. Let's cut the crap, Ethan. I'm here to talk about Sophia. I want you to leave her alone. Ethan leaned back in his chair, feigning indifference. Why would I do that? She's not just some trophy to be won back. She came to me because you failed her. I'm just giving her what she needs. Stop lying. James shot back, his voice rising. She doesn't need you. She's trying to rebuild her life, and you're dragging her back down with your lies and manipulation. Ethan chuckled, his arrogance palpable. Rebuild? You really think she can just forget the fun we had? The passion? You might be her husband, James, but I gave her excitement, adventure. Something you clearly couldn't provide. James felt his anger boiling over, but he took a deep breath, forcing himself to stay composed. You think this is a game? You think threatening her with those pictures will scare me? You're pathetic. Ethan's smile faded, and his expression turned serious. You don't know what I'm capable of. I have those photos, James. The ones where she looks happy with me. I could ruin her life if I wanted to. The threat hung in the air like a dark cloud, and James felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through him. You wouldn't dare. You know how much this would hurt her. You know how much I love her. This is about more than just some stupid affair. Love. Ethan laughed mockingly. What do you know about love? If you truly loved her, you wouldn't let her walk out of your life the way you did. You wouldn't let her feel so alone that she sought comfort in my arms. James stood taller, fueled by a mix of fury and determination. You're wrong, Ethan. I might have made mistakes, but I'm willing to fight for her. I'm willing to be the man she needs, even if you can't accept that. Ethan leaned forward, his voice low and dangerous. You really think this is over? I won't let you take her back. Not without a fight. As the two men glared at each other, a woman entered the cafe, her eyes scanning the room until they landed on James. It was Sophia. She had come looking for him, hoping to ease his worries about Ethan and to stand by his side. James, she called out, rushing over to him. I was looking for you. I saw you leave the house, and I got worried. Ethan's demeanor shifted as he caught sight of Sophia. He stood up, a sly grin returning to his face. Well, if it isn't the star of our little drama, how nice of you to join us. Sophia's expression hardened as she looked between the two men. What's going on here? James stepped closer to Sophia, protective instinct kicking in. Ethan was just leaving. He's been harassing you, and I won't allow it any more. Sophia's heart raced as she processed the situation. Ethan, I've told you to leave me alone. I'm trying to move on from this mess. You can't keep using me to make your life more interesting. Ethan laughed, but it was hollow. But you're the best thing that ever happened to me, Sophia. You can't just throw me away. Remember the nights we shared? The passion. Sophia shook her head, her voice firm. That wasn't love, Ethan. It was a mistake. I was confused and lost, but I'm not that person anymore. I want my life back, and I want to be with James. James felt a rush of pride at Sophia's words, but he could see the fire in Ethan's eyes. You think you can just waltz back into his life after everything? Ethan spat, his voice dripping with venom. I won't let you go that easily. You're mine, Sophia. Sophia stepped back, the weight of Ethan's words crashing over her like a wave. No, Ethan, I'm not yours. I never was. I made a terrible choice, but I'm owning up to it. I want to fix my mistakes. Ethan's face twisted in anger. You think you can just walk away from me? I'll make sure you regret it. James moved in front of Sophia, shielding her from Ethan's fury. You won't lay a finger on her. This ends now, Ethan. You have to face the consequences of your actions. If you continue this path, I'll make sure everyone knows about your threats. Ethan's eyes narrowed, a dangerous glint flashing in them. You think you can scare me? You think your love is enough to keep her safe? You have no idea who you're dealing with. Just as the tension reached its peak, James's phone buzzed again, interrupting the standoff. It was a text from an unknown number. Meet me at the old warehouse tonight. I have something you need to see. Don't bring anyone." James frowned, the urgency of the message sending chills down his spine. He turned to Sophia, his expression grave. "I have to go. This might be connected to Ethan, and I need to know what's happening." Sophia looked worried. "James, be careful. You don't know who sent that message. It could be a trap." James nodded, but felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. "I'll be fine. Just stay here, and don't engage with Ethan. He's not worth it." As he started to walk away, Sophia grabbed his arm, her eyes pleading. "Please, James, be careful. I can't lose you too." He pulled her into a brief embrace, feeling the warmth of her body against his. "I won't let that happen, I promise. Just stay strong." Later that night, James found himself in front of the old warehouse, his heart racing as he approached the entrance. The place was dimly lit, with shadows dancing across the walls. He could hear faint sounds inside, the creaking of metal and the distant echo of footsteps. Taking a deep breath, he pushed open the door and stepped inside. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation, and he could feel his instincts on high alert. He called out, "Who's here? Show yourself." A figure stepped out from the shadows, a familiar face that made James's blood run cold. It was Alex, a mutual friend of both James and Sophia. "James, I'm glad you came. Why did you bring me here?" James demanded, his voice filled with suspicion. "What do you know about Ethan?" Alex looked serious, his expression grave. "I didn't want to involve you in this, but Ethan's been more dangerous than you realize. He's been watching you both, and he's not going to let go of Sophia without a fight." James clenched his fists, anger surging through him. "I'm not afraid of him. I'm ready to do whatever it takes to protect her." "I know you are," Alex replied, stepping closer. "But you need to be smart about this. Ethan has friends, people who would do anything to back him up. He's not just a heartbroken man. He's a ticking time bomb." James felt the weight of Alex's words sink in. "What do you suggest I do?" "Gather evidence against him," Alex advised. "Document his threats. Make sure you have everything. Then when you confront him, you'll have the upper hand. But you need to be careful. He's unpredictable." As James absorbed this information, a plan began to form in his mind. He wouldn't let Ethan destroy his life or his marriage. He would stand firm and protect what mattered most. Back at home, James found Sophia waiting for him, her face pale with worry. "You were gone so long. I was scared something happened to you." "I'm fine," James reassured her, taking her hands in his. "I spoke to Alex. He warned me about Ethan and what he's capable of. We need to be careful and plan our next move." Sophia's eyes widened in fear. "What are we going to do?" "We're going to gather everything we can," James said, determination filling his voice. "We'll document his threats, record any conversations we can, and then we'll confront him together. He won't win this time." Sophia nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I'm so scared, James. I never wanted any of this. I just want to be happy again." James pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her. "We will be happy again, I promise. But we have to fight for it, together." As they held each other tightly, A sense of unity washed over them. They would face whatever challenges lay ahead, side by side. Their love, though bruised, was still alive. As the days passed, James and Sophia meticulously gathered evidence against Ethan. They saved text messages, recorded phone calls, and noted every encounter. It was exhausting and emotionally draining, but they were determined to take control of their lives. On the day of the confrontation, they decided to meet Ethan at a public park, knowing it would be safer than confronting him anywhere else. Sophia was nervous, her hands trembling as she clutched James's arm. "Are you sure we're ready for this?" she asked, anxiety etched on her face. James nodded, determination in his eyes. "We've prepared for this moment. We can't let him manipulate you any longer. We're doing this together." As they approached the park, they spotted Ethan lounging on a bench, his expression smug as always. He looked up as they approached, a cocky smile spreading across his face. "Well, if it isn't the lovebirds, what do you want?" "We need to talk, Ethan," James said, his voice steady. "This has gone too far. You need to leave Sophia alone." Ethan raised an eyebrow, feigning innocence. "Leave her alone? But we were having so much fun together. She was happier with me." "Stop lying," Sophia interjected, her voice firm. "You manipulated me when I was vulnerable. You took advantage of my insecurities, and I won't let you do that anymore." Ethan leaned back, crossing his arms with a smirk. "And what makes you think you can just walk away from me? You think this is over? I have things on you too, you know." James stepped forward, his anger boiling over. "You're nothing but a coward, Ethan. You thrive on hurting others. But we're not afraid of you. We have proof of your threats and manipulation, and if you don't stop, we'll make sure everyone knows the truth." Ethan's expression changed, his confidence faltering for the first time. "You think you can scare me? I'm not afraid of your little threats. You don't know who you're dealing with." "We know exactly who we're dealing with," Sophia replied, her voice strong. "You're a bully, and bullies only thrive on fear. But we're not afraid anymore." The confrontation escalated, voices rising as Ethan's bravado began to crack. He shouted insults, trying to regain control, but James and Sophia stood united, refusing to back down. As the argument reached its peak, a small crowd began to gather, drawn by the commotion. Seeing the onlookers, Ethan's bravado crumbled further. He glanced around nervously, realizing that he was losing power. "You're making a mistake," he warned, desperation creeping into his voice. "You'll regret this." James stepped closer, his expression unwavering. "No, Ethan, you're the one who will regret this. Your threats don't scare us anymore. You're done." As Ethan stormed off, his face a mask of anger and defeat, James and Sophia felt a rush of relief wash over them. They had faced their fears and stood up for their love, reclaiming their lives from Ethan's grasp. In the weeks that followed, they focused on healing their relationship. They went on dates, spent quality time together, and worked on rebuilding the trust that had been shaken. They sought therapy to help navigate the emotional fallout from the affair, learning to communicate openly and honestly. Sophia found strength in herself that she didn't know existed. She discovered new hobbies, joined a book club, and even started a blog to share her journey of healing and empowerment. She was determined to reclaim her identity and learn from her past mistakes. James, in turn, learned to be patient and understanding. He supported Sophia every step of the way, encouraging her to pursue her dreams and reminding her of her worth. Together, they forged a deeper connection, one built on trust, honesty, and love. One evening, as they sat on their balcony watching the sunset, Sophia turned to James with a smile. "Thank you for standing by me through all of this. I don't know what I would have done without you." James took her hand, squeezing it gently. "I'll always be here for you, no matter what. We're a team, and I believe in us." With their hearts full of hope and resilience, they embraced the future together. They knew that their journey wouldn't always be easy, but they were committed to facing it side by side. Their love had been tested, but it emerged stronger, forged in the fires of betrayal and redemption. Months later, as they walked through the park where they had confronted Ethan, Sophia looked at James with a glimmer of excitement in her eyes. "What if we made a new tradition of coming here every year, to celebrate our love and resilience?" James grinned, nodding in agreement. "Absolutely. This place will always remind us of our strength and how far we've come." And so they established their new tradition, a symbol of their commitment to one another. As they walked hand in hand, laughter echoing through the park, they knew they had overcome the darkness together, ready to face whatever life had in store for them next. Their love story was far from over. It was just beginning,